Fuck Activision Blizzard, dude. All right, like seriously. I'm
After
fucking
what
over
they did
with
to
it.
my man, fucking Sourfang,
So-
fuck him right up the butt.
Yeah. So first of all, WoW's dying
To the hands of WoW.
to the hands of WoW because they just don't give a shit anymore, and they ran out of ideas 4 expansions ago. Hearthstone has become. Hearthstone's been out of control for a while. All right, they have their own issues, just like with balancing in game things, and they tried to fix it with the whole fucking season things. But it's like if you spent a lot of money on that game, I mean, I guess you could validate it by saying like, oh, I play Magic too, and you spent a lot of money in that game too. But whatever.
Oh, you actually get physical copies though.
Hmm?
I said you get physical copies.
Yeah,
that
but you get
makes it worth
physical
it.
copies that can resell the cards.
and they retain their value.
Yeah.
Well, some of them do.
Well, yeah, some of them, and they also increase in value.
Yeah,
because that's right.
This kind of goes back into that what we were talking about last week with the like football cards and the actual like cards having a physical item that you spend your money on. Yeah, Overwatch is getting ridiculous.
Yeah,
with balancing, as we heard a few weeks.
Well,
actually, a while back. By the way, just gonna interject here. I'm sorry that we have not had a very consistent schedule recently. Rick gave me the sickness that he had.
First of all, I got the sickness, and then you got the sickness,
and then you gave the sickness to more people.
I did not give the sickness to more people. I think other people just got it themselves.
You were in the same room as Drew, and you were sick before he was.
That's true. Actually, yeah, like Drew probably did get what I got from me, but I got what I got from Zoe.
And she got it from her work.
And she got it from her boss, who decided to come to work with 103 fever and then had to be rushed to the hospital because he had 103 fever.
Yeah. But, so, back to this.
Oh, excuse me.
Overwatch is just, they're in their own kind of world right now with...
Nobody plays Heroes of the Storm.
Which, honestly, is kind of a shame because I feel like out of all the games offered, minus, like, Diablo, because they can't really screw up Diablo at this point. Like, Diablo 3, like, they might fuck up the entire franchise with 4, but in the current state of it, from what I've seen, it's still, like, people aren't outraged by anything about Diablo 3.
Well, Diablo Immortal, you forget about that.
Well, no, I'm saying, like, the game itself, Diablo 3, right?
It had a rough launch with that auction house. People forget about that. That was in the game for a while.
That was amazing, though.
No, it wasn't.
I liked it.
Because you made money from it?
No, I didn't play at the time. I wish I would have played at the time. I've watched a bunch of interviews with people that there was a dude that in the course of like 2 months made $60,000 off that.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, he figured out how to solo farm one of the in dungeons to get a chess piece that was like
super hard to get.
People were paying like $1,500 for it on average.
Well, that's the thing. $1,500 real money.
Yes.
Okay. That's not good. That's not a good thing.
I get it. Okay. Regardless of that, I'm saying the current state of it, they have not really fucked it.
Well, they haven't fucked anything with it. It's been the same fucking...
And maybe that's the issue.
Well, yeah, and then...
I don't know.
We're getting into the weeds. Let's rope this back into the current issue, which is...
They killed my boy Sourfang.
And then, a week later, they banned Blitzchung because all he said was, liberate Hong Kong, revolution of our age, during an interview. They banned him for a year. We'll lay out the facts, all right? They banned him for a year. They revoked his prize money, which I think is $100,000.
Well, I think it was a little bit more than that, but in that
150, whatever the fuck it was.
In that range.
Yeah. They took his prize money away. They fired the 2 hosts that were interviewing him that wanted nothing to do with it, because as soon as he said it, they both like ducked under the desk, like tried to hide their face.
Yeah.
Like, right? Fired them or suspended them for a year, right? And actually, I don't know. I think they got reduced to 6 months, but whatever. This whole thing is a PR nightmare for them, right? And how they tried to remedy that was, okay, well, we're going to backtrack now because everyone on Twitter's yelling at us. And what? What do you have?
Recently,
yeah,
they
they-
reduced his ban to 6
Yes.
months, and they gave him back his prize money.
That's what I was getting to.
Okay.
All right. And I think they reduced the broadcasters to 6 months as well.
Yep.
Still too harsh.
Extremely harsh.
Extremely harsh. And I'll tell you why, right? Because I have this thing called morals and freedom of speech, right? He didn't call for violence. All he said was, liberate Hong Kong, revolution of our time, right? That's not a call for action. It's not a threat. It's literally just like he's taking a stance on this. That's it.
Yeah.
Right? Now, I know in their little fucking rule thing, they have like don't push political agendas, whatever. This is the same company. This is the same company that boasts all of these, like, they push gay rights, they push things that they want to back.
Well, yeah.
In Overwatch.
They push what they think is going to be the most marketable, because that's the thing, and
Yeah.
and that's kind of the point where I'm going to tackle this from, is the business side of this.
Oh no, from the business side of it, I totally understand why they did it.
Which is
I don't agree with it.
Right.
But yeah.
People aren't going to agree with it or whatever.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's still business. But yeah, so that was the first incident, and they have since then resolved some of that. Later on, about a week later, I think they banned another entire team.
Yeah, because they held up like free Hong Kong signs or whatever, and then didn't get banned. And it wasn't until they were like, well, we did this and nothing's happened to us. And then they banned them.
Yeah.
Because again, Twitter outrage.
Yeah. So
I don't necessarily agree with Twitter outrage all the time, but like,
but okay, at the very base of all of this is the fact that you have a American-based company that I believe
has
majority
the
shareholders in China.
It's not in China. The majority's not in China.
It's the majority in America, but
the majority's in America.
Portion is in China.
A portion is in China. And here's the thing that like people don't necessarily understand. Yes, people are like, they sold out to Tencent. They didn't sell out to Tencent. Tencent's the Chinese company that is partnered with them.
Okay.
And they have to in order for them to sell anything in China, because the Chinese
it's very weird and restrictive.
Yes.
And you can see this with an example of, very basic stuff like the undead race in the American version is going to be different than the undead race in the Chinese version.
Exactly, because like they have to censor everything, right?
Yeah.
And this isn't the only company that does that. Any Western company that wants to do business in China, and China is a big ripe fruit full of capitalist income, right? So people want a little part of that pie. Totally understandable from the capitalist mindset that I have. Totally makes sense. But you have to partner with a company over there, or they have to have like some stock in your company in order for you to do business there, or you have to have like government like legislation that says that you can do business there, which is very hard to get apparently. And they're not going to do it for like video games or like entertainment revenue.
And that's and I'll just say like that's going to be a lot of where these issues stem from is the entertainment industry. Things like movies, TV, music, video games. Like a clothing company realistically isn't going to have the same sort of issues,
generally. Like,
so it's censored, or it's centered around censorship. Yeah. And the hilarious thing about all of this that I just want to add in right now real quick, the time that all of this was happening, someone had made an off comment about the leader of China looking like Winnie the Pooh.
Oh, that happened a while ago.
Well, it circled around like recently within the past couple weeks
again,
where it got banned.
It came up again.
So then South Park did an entire episode on that about just censorship while all this is going on with Blizzard.
That's funny.
And it wasn't even like they could have taken a stab at Blizzard.
Yeah.
They should have, but and if you're not actually aware of what's going on with the Hong Kong protest, because some people might just like to pay attention to like gaming news or not pay attention to world news, or I don't know, right? Essentially, Hong Kong is an independent state from China itself.
Yeah, they have a
elected
low grade democracy that's vaguely based on the British Commonwealth.
Yes.
Yeah.
All of that though, because of an agreement that was made however long back, it's supposed to be ending within the next 20, 30 years, essentially.
Yeah.
So Hong Kong's trying to prevent that. All these protests started with and I say elected very loosely because the person in power is pretty much in the Chinese government's pocket.
Yeah.
We're pushing for changes in legislation that went against what Hong Kong, like as a people wanted,
has stood for, and all that, and what people of Hong Kong have gotten used to.
Yes. So they started these protests, and majority of the protests have all been peaceful protests. As far as the Hong Kong side goes, there have been violent acts by the Hong Kong, but that's not what this whole thing isn't centered around. We're going to be violent to do this. With any sort of protest, you're going to have people that are peaceful, and you're going to have people that are violent.
Yeah.
Majority of it's peaceful.
And it's going to go back to like who shot first kind of thing.
Yeah.
And there have been incidents like that. It has gotten bad, but regardless of where you stand on that,
that's what's going. I mean, but that's what's going on.
That's the environment that Blitzchung was addressing.
Yes.
Right.
Peaceful environment.
Yeah, and what he said was not a call for violence. It was not whatever. All he did was wear a gas mask in the same vein that the protesters have been wearing, because they've been
getting gassed.
Yeah, they've been getting gassed. So, like, it makes sense to me as someone who,
it's a public platform that a lot of people are going to see.
Exactly.
That's the thing. Like, Hong Kong can't do, like, Hong Kong with their protests, they've been able to make a little bit of ground. That initial the initial change in the legislation that started all of this was corrected, but with any sort of protest or people trying to gain more rights, they started asking for a bit more. Whether or not it's unreasonable, they're already making ground, so they're going to keep pushing.
Yeah, of course.
And from where we sit, they don't seem like unreasonable demands.
Yeah.
But that's because it's more in line with our current
what we have,
system.
Yes, because we're the only country in the world that truly has free speech.
Yes. As much as people like to forget about that or want to take it away.
Yeah. So, bottom line, what Blitzchung did, from most perspectives, totally fine.
Yes.
Right? Blizzard did the worst thing that they could have done.
Yeah.
Now, they did exactly what they were they did what they were going to do, right? Because of their stakes because the stakes in the market in China. Of course, he was going to get backlash for it,
yeah.
Right? They could have avoided it, or at least kept it mostly under the rugs, if they hadn't taken his money away and hadn't have banned him for as long as they did.
Yeah.
And also, they shouldn't have touched the broadcasters, the people who were interviewing him. They just shouldn't have touched them because they didn't want anything to do with it. And immediately after, he said that, I think they cut to a commercial break.
Yeah.
And whatever. I think all of this is on Twitch.
And that's also another thing. Like, if this was not on Twitch, if this was something that was recorded and then put out, more of a reason.
And the mere fact was that a bunch of people were watching this when it happened. So of course,
it was, the damage was already done.
Yeah.
Maybe start looking into some stuff that the NFL does after what happened. Which Super Bowl was it? 2003.
Are you talking about with the
nip
wardrobe malfunction?
Yep.
Yeah, it was early 2000s. Yeah.
Funnily enough, after that happened, that's when live broadcast started to put a delay in it for enough time to be able to cut away from something.
Yeah.
Little fact. But so going back to what I said earlier was I was gonna look at this more from as a business what they needed to do,
Yeah.
right? Because as you take everything off the table, you have someone that, while directly isn't employed by this company, is representing this company in a public image. Just like if you think about this, right?
Yeah.
Going back to the NFL, your NFL players
do represent the
NFL, even though they're not a part of the NFL staff.
Yeah, and the NBA thing just happened with them. One of the owners, Houston Rockets.
Yeah.
Houston Rockets owner. He spoke out against China, and then everyone had to backtrack that. Whatever. Yeah. Because they want to sell things in China. All right,
it's a good market over there. But yeah, so you have someone that's not employed by the company that makes a statement that, in this case, severely offends a good portion of the market, or would be detrimental to that market if that company publicly shared those beliefs.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, that's what happened. Like, Blizzard didn't come out and say this.
No,
Blizzard didn't get up right behind them and say, "Yeah, we back this."
Yeah.
What they should have done, because that they have this stipulation within their terms of service and their with any of their games and with any probably the contracts that these people have to sign if they're going to be in these sort of tournaments, and probably going forward, something like this is going to be put in that contract. Was they should have released a statement that said these beliefs or these things are not indicative of where Blizzard stands on this.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not that would have been enough is still in question. We'll never know.
Well, yeah, we'll never know because that's not what they did.
But that's more of the PR. That's how they should have handled it. They shouldn't have hit the button
and that's the thing. The reason they took his money away was because whenever he signed the contract to compete in the competition, it was there's specifically a line that says, like, keep all politics, whatever, keep the talking points to Blizzard and around the Blizzard games, whatever. Like,
and that's not
and he signed that,
right? That's not an unreasonable thing to do, though.
It's not,
because
and again, Blitzchung did make the
conscious decision
to do what he did, right? Although I think at the time he didn't think it would be that big of a deal,
right?
Right, because I mean, from my perspective, I'm sure yours as well. Like we just talked about this, most people's perspective, it's not really that big of a deal, right? And that's when we kind of get into this like gray area of like.
It's a
morality and all that, right?
It's a moral gray area.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, though, what could be said is that whether or not businesses have like moral convictions, really, is not entirely dependent on how well they do as a business. Yeah. Now, understand there are varying levels of immorality that they could do, right? Yeah. I mean, look at the sort of businesses that supported the Nazi Party.
Exactly.
Like, so, but with this, at the end of the day, a company needs to basically, especially in today's society, a company that's like an entertainment, whether it's video games, it's movies, it's TV,
we'll
right?
keep the entertainment,
right? Should remain as neutral as they possibly can.
They should,
because their product, in this case, all of Blizzard's games, do not have any sort of effect in the political realm or world events or anything like that, right? Nor should it.
Yeah, I would agree. And as far as like entertainment goes, from my opinion of that is entertainment should be as like politically neutral as possible, unless it's a specific political entertainment thing that is
but it's intended,
right. It's intended in that sense, right? Unless it's intended, then of course. So
right, like for example, if I wanted to watch Lord of the Rings, I don't need to be sitting here thinking, what agenda is being pushed by this movie? No, I want to see fucking orcs get smashed on
Yeah.
by elves.
I
And
want to see Frodo struggle through Mordor,
yeah,
and Sam carrying him on his back.
yeah.
Right.
I mean, we already deal with enough politics in WoW as far as Horde versus Alliance.
Yeah.
That
it's like, and that's just
and the
people
corruption
projecting
within the
politics
Horde.
into it, right?
Well, not even real politics. That's just
trade chat aside.
okay. Yeah,
right?
trade chat aside.
All right. What what Blizzard could have done with Blitzchung, right? The reason it got blown up as much as it did is because they punished him severely.
Yes.
Right?
They overreacted. It wouldn't I don't think it had been brought into the main like the spotlight to as much of an extent as it was if they'd have just like slapped him on the wrist like, "Hey, like don't do that again." Like they could have
they could have
here's what I would have been fine with. Like again, understanding that this is a business, they have to, and they had contractual obligations. Like if this guy broke his contract, like
yeah, sure,
I would have fined him. Probably wouldn't have fined him all of his money. Like if he won 150,000, I might fine him like 5 or 10,000.
Yeah,
things that like you see happen with in sports, right?
Yeah,
the NFL or basketball or baseball, like when these people get fined, I mean, it's like they're making millions of dollars, so you get fined like $5,000 for a bad hit. Like, okay, whatever, you messed up, you're getting penalized for it, and you're getting fined for it.
Yeah.
You know, maybe going forward with that would have not centered around maybe giving him,
and they probably would have gotten away with that. And here's the reason why. Like Blitzchung was not the vocal one in this.
No.
Right. He's the one that said it, but like he accepted his punishment, which is funny enough. He just kind of like was like, well, yeah, like I did what I did. Like I know it goes against the rules, whatever. Right. He wouldn't have continued to push the narrative.
No.
Right. That just would have been it. But no. Let's take his money away, ban him for 12 months. And then once Twitter yells at us for 2 weeks and people start boycotting our fucking games to the point where they break the servers trying to cancel their Battle.net accounts.
We'll move into that in a second.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, to the point where the U.S. government
the U.S. government's now involved.
Making statements about, hey, you might want to look at reversing this. First off, people that have probably never heard of Blizzard or Hearthstone up until this incident.
Yeah. People that are totally removed from video games.
Yeah. Are coming and saying, this is probably a bad call.
Yeah. People that really didn't give a shit about the loot box gambling situation that EA fronted, right? Those people that didn't give a shit about that were involved with this because now we're getting into the realm of free speech. And that's a big topic here in the U.S.
It is.
So,
and I should also add that, funnily enough, the point with Hong Kong and the protest, it's one of the few things that both parties are aligned on.
What do you mean?
Both of our major political parties
are
agreed on, like, we need to back these guys.
That's scary.
That is something that shows that
I'd be shaking in my shoes if I was Activision Blizzard.
Yeah. Again, it was one of those things they overreacted. They could have handled this much better going forward. Hopefully they learn from this.
Yeah. Well, they're probably not.
Well,
they're probably not going to learn from it, seeing as how
like a week later they banned an entire competitive team for
doing the same thing.
Yeah,
but at least like they're being consistent in that sense, because they weren't being consistent because they didn't ban them. But whatever. And the problem was they issued 2 different statements.
One for America, one for China.
America, one for China.
We actually have the Chinese statement.
Oh, what was it?
We express our strong indignation or resentment and condemnation of the events that occurred in the Hearthstone Asia Pacific competition last weekend. and absolutely oppose the dissemination of personal political ideas during any events or games. The players involved will be banned, and the commentators involved will be immediately terminated from any official business.
Yeah.
Also, we will protect or safeguard our national dignity or honor.
Yeah.
Now, question about this. Earlier, you said that Blizzard is partnered with Tencent.
Yes, so that they can
do this.
So they can sell in China. Yes.
Did Blizzard PR make this statement, or did Tencent PR make this?
So that was one of the things that was talked about, because the statement was supposedly done by the Blizzard president, J. Allen Brack, right? I think he's one of the last like original guys,
right,
that's still working at Blizzard. Everyone else has retired or moved on to other things.
Yeah, this shit wouldn't have happened if Chris Metzen was still there.
Yeah, the shit wouldn't have happened if Metzen was still there. But I remember reading about this, like the people that were like interpreting it, it's like the Chinese statement isn't the same.
It's not the same statement.
Well, it's not the same statement in general, but like it doesn't even seem like it's
no
Barack. No, like it doesn't seem like it's Barack even like just abiding to China. It's probably somebody else writing it entirely.
I mean that's entirely what that is.
Well, yeah.
Here is I mean,
but they tried to say that he was the one that wrote it.
I doubt
and then
that.
he got it translated or whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah, I really doubt that because of that last sentence. Also, we will protect or safeguard our national dignity.
Yeah.
It doesn't take a smart person to realize that the national dignity is not talking about America.
No.
So entirely like, and especially with how China functions, like going back to censorship, if they're going to release a political statement, it's more than likely going to be written not like if they in reality think about this. Do you think they would really
it up with China had no influence on our decision?
Well, okay, so that part I don't know, right? But if you're an American company that's making a statement to the Chinese people, China's probably not gonna let you just say whatever you want to say.
Oh no, it's gonna be censored.
People.
It's gonna be written by whoever the fuck they have over in China.
Yeah.
Like obviously, right? Obviously, but that's not what they tried to say. They tried to say it came from him. Whatever the fuck it was. I know he like his signature was on the forum statement. All that bullshit. So here's what Blizzard's currently facing: mass boycott. There's going to be a protest, an organized protest at BlizzCon.
Yeah.
I can almost guarantee. Okay, they canceled the Overwatch launch for Switch. It launched like unceremoniously. Like they were going to have this big event for it, and it just like got canceled. And Nintendo threw them under the bus. By the way.
Yeah.
Nintendo put out a statement like, Overwatch event has been canceled by Blizzard. And then and this is on the tail end of last BlizzCon, and also
they already pissed off people with the Immortals.
Yeah, they already pissed off people with Diablo Immortals, that's a Tencent game that's reskinned to be Diablo.
And I know I don't know if you made this comment on the podcast or not.
What?
But you can tell that in reality that game is probably more directed towards the Chinese market than it is American audiences, because
it totally is.
I don't know how many people have been sitting here in America being like, you know, it'd be great, a Diablo game on mobile.
Diablo on mobile, right? Here's how they could have fixed it. All right, if they'd have just been like Diablo Immortals, the next Diablo. If they'd just been like Diablo Immortals, the next Diablo, and we have cross-play between PC, console, and
mobile.
Drum roll, mobile. So now you can play while you're waiting on the bus, right? That'd have blown everyone's minds. Everyone would have been up in arms about it. It would have been the next big fucking thing. That's not what they did.
And they took
it's just going to be a mobile game.
And they took a further stab.
You guys don't have phones?
Oh
my It's like, you idiot. It was never about that.
So, speaking on the some of the steps that are being taken by the community against Blizzard, I got two things I'm going to cover. The first one is that they're actually taking Mei from Overwatch, and they're trying to use her in the Hong Kong protest as
she's
mascot.
being yep.
In the hopes that China will ban Overwatch.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Hilarious.
She won't be in the next Overwatch 2. She won't be there.
Yeah. And another thing that you kind of spoke on earlier. So when all of this first started happening, and I was seeing all this on, the WoW subreddit, I was seeing this in the gaming subreddit. I even saw this in like world news, like people talking about this.
Mm-hmm.
Most people were going in and not only canceling their subscriptions, but deleting their accounts because
they're Battle.net accounts. They're saying,
because that is the ultimate, like that's the metric that Blizzard is using for how many players, not necessarily how many active subscribers, but how many accounts have been made to the shareholders. So an interesting thing has stemmed from that though. When people did not have issues canceling their subscription because that would have opened up Pandora's box essentially.
Yeah.
They started running into issues with deleting their account. Now, Blizzard can say that because so many people were trying to do it that it broke their server, and there might have been enough people that it did that.
Mm-hmm.
But from where Blizzard stands, unfortunately, in our country of freedom, they have every right to refuse to delete our accounts.
Yeah.
But do you know where they do not have that?
What?
Europe. So Europe, the EU passed a law a couple years ago that, or maybe it was last year. It was recently that basically said, hey, we get that everyone does not like the fact that when something's on the internet, it's on the internet. Now, whether or not, sort of be smart about that to begin with, but the EU came out and was like, well, you can put in a request to get your information removed. So, because Blizzard started denying, and that's what this started out as, not an issue like our stuff is broken. They would circle, they would basically give you an error message saying, we can't do this, contact support, when they were dealing with support. So from where people in the people in Europe, they have the ability to, if this is not being done, they are able to file a lawsuit against Blizzard. Not only will it get deleted, but it'd be a pretty sizable chunk of money out of Blizzard's profits. Since then, I mean, here's the thing.
I haven't heard any news on that in the last,
dying down though.
Yeah.
I think that once this stuff started getting reversed, people kind of backed off, or much like with what happened with EA and their loot boxes, it lasted all of like 2 weeks, 3 weeks of outrage, and then people just kind of went about their day. Now that one may have lasted a little bit longer, but at some point it got to the point where a mass number of people were just like, fuck it.
Well, yeah, like news fatigue is a thing, so people just like stop fucking giving a shit. That does happen, but Blizzard deserves everything they have coming to them.
Yes,
especially after having their most profitable year, they laid off 800 employees, because that happened this year.
I would have to argue that that's probably not so much on Blizzard as it is Activision.
It's the same company.
It is the same company.
It's the same company.
I get
now.
that.
That's the issue. It's the same company now. You can't say if I say Blizzard, I mean Activision Blizzard. Well, if I say Activision, I mean Activision Blizzard.
I can still blame Activision for this because Activision fucked up Blizzard.
Well, yeah, because the original Blizzard, the original company, it's not there anymore. It doesn't exist. You got Brack, and he's bowing his head too. So, no. It's done. It's over. I'm not spending another dime on a Blizzard product.
That's fine.
I'm not buying another Activision game. Like, I'm done. Like, that's what I can do
as a player.
as my silent protest, right? Like, I can just be like, well, you're not getting any more of my money.
But also understand that a vast majority of the people that play this
like aren't going to do that.
Don't actually care or know. And this is the same thing that happened with EA. There was enough of an outcry.
Yeah.
There's a sizable group of people that were talking about it, were bringing up issues with it. I mean, to the point where it got, again, the EU to look at, maybe we should ban these things.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, I know like the loot crate or the loot box thing really isn't like mainstream at this point. However, it's still being talked about in legislation over in the UK and other places. There are studies. There are actually studies being done on how it affects childhood development, addictive personality, all that shit. Like, that's the thing. Like, I don't think it's going to last very much longer. I think this is one of those like gaming trends that it reared its head. It stuck out too far. They didn't regulate themselves. It got cut off. Right. Like, and I think.
But I mean, at the end of the day, does it really have any business being in? No,
it doesn't.
I mean, the thing. Okay, as a gamer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Again, if they want to pass legislation on loot crates, good on them. That they're gonna do what they're gonna do.
Yeah.
Whatever comes from this comes from it. At the end of the day, just like you said, I'm not gonna buy any more Blizzard/Activision products. I choose that if I don't want to do anything with the loot box, I'm not gonna do anything with the loot box.
Exactly.
We've talked about that before.
Yeah.
And but what I want to see more people, and occasionally this it kind of, the outcry of this sort of comes out and then it fades back away, and then it might come back out like 6-7 months later. Then we've been playing this like, not even peekaboo, but just like, I don't like where game companies are going with pre-orders, like releasing.
That's been an issue for
it has
10 years, if not longer.
I know, right? It's been an issue for a long time. And people will pop up to say something about it, and then it just goes away,
fades away, and then it comes back up.
Like, if I wanted to see anything done in the gaming industry, that's like the biggest thing that I'd want to see. Again, like early on, well, I just thought of something that just makes my point mute. Or moot. In the past, I would pre-order a game because of the limited number, the limited quantity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're gonna go to GameStop to pick up a game on launch. If you don't pre-order it, chances are they're gonna be out. But with everything changing over to a digital thing,
it's not a thing.
It doesn't need to be an issue anymore. So offering all these bonuses you're essentially kickstarting a get.
Like that's what I'm saying. Like, and we are moving towards digital, right?
And we'll know that we've reached digital once GameStop goes out of business.
Yeah,
they're on their way out.
How many times has it gone bankrupt here in the last like couple of years?
I mean, I would honestly like this is a generous number 2. I'd give them 10 more years, but in reality, it might be like 5.
Yeah, like GameStop's going out. EB went under, like at least in the US, like a long time ago.
There's really no. I mean, your stores that have these things are already big box stores that aren't centered around games. So like Walmart, Target, Best Buy, like cool, they're gonna have physical copies, but they don't make all their money solely on video games.
Exactly, and that's the thing. Like all of these, like the pre-order stuff. Even on that issue, it's like you can get it if you digitally purchase it.
Yeah,
you can like
they started moving away from having physical items that you get, because I remember I pre-ordered like Halo Reach, or I pre-ordered like some Call of Duty stuff or Skyrim. I got actual merchandise when I did that, right?
Well, and you can look at Bethesda with Fallout 76 and their shitty pre-order bonus.
They lied.
They did lie. They straight up lied to customers, and then they didn't remedy it.
Yeah.
And now Bethesda's facing that backlash, and you know what? Is it? I want to say Diablo Immortal. What Doom Eternal? Right.
Yeah.
Not hyped for that game anymore. I was very hyped for that game. Not hyped for it anymore.
I don't know. I wasn't paying attention to it.
Okay, so you weren't paying attention to it. But, like...
we're just stating what we're thinking.
Hmm?
I said, we're just stating what we're thinking.
Yeah,
You're not hyped for it.
Thinking.
I wasn't tracking Doom.
No, so, like, Doom Eternal, people got hyped for it. Because, oh, it's id Software. It's Software with Bethesda. And the pre-order bonus for that is you get the Doom guy's helmet. It's not going to be what you think it is. We already know this.
Can I just say that, like, the last, like, probably, like, greatest pre-order bonus was, like, Halo 3 when you could get Master Chief's helmet, and it was a legitimate helmet.
It didn't fit anyone.
It fit little kids, but also at the same time, like, you could...
It was an M-rated game. You're selling it to adults. You're supposed to be selling it to adults. Like, bullshit.
Regardless.
It should have been a full-size helmet. I should have got a fucking motorcycle helmet for that goddamn price.
I mean...
Bullshit.
Yeah, it was still... It's still cool.
No, it was cool. Like, things used to be cooler. But it was still borderline garbage. Like, I remember I got the Borderlands 2 Collector's Edition at the time. And it was it came with like one of the loot chest things, right? And there was a bunch of shit inside of it that was actually like really cool. Like, it came with a calendar, all this. It had a bunch of stuff inside the box that was really cool. They could have made it better if they had just, made the box that it came in a little bit better.
But are we always just
like
gonna want
cheap
more?
Plastic. Okay, well, that's the consumer mentality, right?
Yes.
All right, we're in a capitalist society. The consumer should always want more, right?
Yeah.
The issue is whenever the consumers are like, I don't want any more. You sold me garbage for this many years. I'm done, right? That's the fine. You need to be somewhere in the middle of that, right?
Yeah.
Maximize profits while, keeping your consumers happy. A lot of these companies, these AAA companies, are cutting too many corners.
Yeah. Because people are still going to buy it. People, like, here's
to an extent, like, but like that focus of like cutting corners, making as much profit as we can now, that mentality does not go long term. Because eventually people are just going to keep walking away. And yeah, the numbers might be small now. Project it 10 years from now. Are you still around? Is your company still going? Are you still making games?
Well, yeah, but again, that's the nature of capitalism. Like, they have the ability to make that choice to do that.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, whether or not we agree with it or not, well, it's gonna affect.
I'm not saying like agree disagree. I'm just saying like.
But no, the point that I'm trying to make is that the actions that a business decides to take, whether it's cut corners to maximize profits, at some point they might be benefiting in the immediate, but in the long term it's going to bite them in the ass. Yeah, and that's what's going to happen.
And here's the biggest issue with how social media is now and how people are so interconnected and the internet's a thing now, right? It's a lot harder for these companies to pull off this bullshit and get away with it, right? It was, I think 10 years ago, it was way easier for them to do it, right? And it's only going to get worse for them the more interconnected people are, right? And I guess that's my point. It's like, I want it to change for the benefit of the companies and the consumers. That's what I would want, right? In an ideal capitalist society, I want to be sold stuff that I want.
But do you understand that the successful companies right now have moved away from doing that? Think about it, right? Nintendo's going to be around for a while, and they're not really...
Nintendo still has this thing called values and ethics. Even if we don't agree with those values and ethics, they've at least kept to it for a long time, and it's done them well in the long run.
They're making the decision to not do certain things, right? And there's companies that have probably, like, that we won't never know for sure, but maybe a game was going to come out, and they had a board meeting. They're like, well, we could choose to go a route of having, some sort of collector's edition, but seen based off of what has happened with these other companies that have done this, do we decide to risk that? Yeah. So if anything, it sucks. They're cutting corners. The people are getting screwed. Like, that is shitty. But let it be a lesson learned to other companies that see this and see the effects. Because here's the thing. At the end of the day, Bethesda's not gonna walk away from this like unscathed. They
They'll
probably
they'll
cannot.
survive.
No, I'm saying
Survive.
they're. I'm not saying like this one
Yeah.
incident basically destroyed Bethesda, right? Because
Yeah.
they're still producing games, whatever. But in the future, if they're going to look at releasing any sort of collector's edition or anything on that line, they better have their shit together, or they
Yep.
might just not do that.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like I'm not saying like there's no like return, like there's no path of redemption for
Right.
these companies. I'm not saying that at all. Of course they can always turn it around, right? And make things for the better. But it's like EA doesn't look like it's going to be doing that anytime soon. Shit, look at we'll go to a Japanese company, Konami. They're fucking themselves because they'd rather make pachinko machines.
Fuck themselves. How long ago was it that they fired
3 years ago?
I thought it was longer.
No, it was like, so officially they fired him in like 2016, but he was removed from his position. He got like demoted in the company from like deputy vice president, or the fuck it was.
Yeah.
In like 2015. Actually, I'll send it to you. We can talk about it at a different time, but there's this conspiracy video that I gotta send to you. You'll find it fun, about Hideo Kojima. But regardless, it's like I want my hobby and the industry that funds my hobby, that I fund,
to be successful.
Yeah, I want it to be successful. I want it to do well. That's why whenever a company does something that I didn't expect, that I think's a good thing, like what Epic did with Fortnite, like, okay, I want that to do well. I want them to build on that and make it better and continue to make it better.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't want to play a game for, and that's the thing. Like, some people are against like the whole like games as services. Like, I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing, because if a game can keep up the game as a service and can build on it and keep me in the game, then okay, I benefit from it because I'm staying with this game, and I feel like some sense of
accomplishment,
whatever. It's my hobby, whatever.
Yeah.
Right. And you also have companies that will abuse that mentality.
Well, yeah, it's a very hard it's a very hard concept to get done, like to do right.
Yeah.
And I think that's
not
where
many companies do it right.
And that's where I think a lot of the skepticism comes from, is when you have, let's say, 90% of the people that do this, or not actually, they look at this, right? Again, but this comes down to the very basic concept as a business that I want to make money.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably one of the few driving factors across the world for anything. People want to make money. People want to be wealthy. People want to be successful.
Yeah.
So this model is easily exploited. Yeah. You kind of, like, I'm not a game designer, but if I wanted to take advantage of people, how I would set that up is, much like any other sort of business venture that you start, you make an investment at the beginning. You put some money into it at the beginning. You make it seem, okay, this is a good game.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that I could get into. Cool, they're not charging me for any, like, I don't have to buy the game. I don't have to pay monthly for the game, but I could buy, in-game items, whatever, right? Maybe the skins or cosmetics or whatever, right? Nothing that is game breaking. I'm gonna feel inclined to do that because this is a good game. This is like, this is just what I'm gonna do.
Maybe your consumers that have already bought your game are requesting, demanding more content, more expansion. Okay, and then that prompts you to go into DLCs, whatever.
Right. So I'd look at it from that way, and then I'd see, because let's say if I was a predatory business,
mm-hmm.
which is what I would call these people, that do stuff like this, and I was the one that put out Fortnite. It would have been good for that initial thing. I would have saw how much money that I made initially.
Mm-hmm.
Then I've been like phoning in afterwards. I'd just be like, fuck it, like trickle some stuff here and there. It's not going to be anywhere near the quality as this initial thing was.
Yeah.
Or I'm gonna start seeing that, hey, people spend money on cosmetics, but people also spend more money when you get some sort of advantage, whether it's level boost or or whatever.
Yeah, of course.
So
and those
and that's
companies
that
do that,
and that's that
and
predatory mindset. And unfortunately, that I would say there are a lot more games that do that than the successful games that are legitimately like, hey, we're not trying to screw you over. We're not trying to pull wool over your eyes. We want to make this game accessible to everyone. But just know, in order for this to succeed, while we don't want to force people to spend money on this, if you do,
we
it
want
allows
to give
us
you the opportunity to spend money.
Yes. And when you do that, it allows us to do more stuff.
Yeah.
Warframe. You don't really need to spend money on that.
No, you don't.
I'd say Warframe and Fortnite. Like Fortnite, legitimately, Fortnite, and they struck a chord immediately because that team was developing a PvE game that it was gonna sell for like $20, and even then, that's not unreasonable, right?
No.
It was gonna be your classic kind of tower.
It was supposed to be free to play, but you could buy the early access for $20. That's
again, but I guess that comes into more of like we kind of need some money up front to support some of this further costs. Like I don't know. We're getting into a society where game companies don't need to seek out investors to fund 100% of their thing. But Fortnite, when they're like, by the way, while we're still working on our PvE game that's not entirely finished yet, we're still pushing out stuff for that. Here's just this one map battle royale thing that we just think will be fun, just go in and do whatever. That skyrocketed.
Yeah. And that skyrocketed because PUBG's popularity at the time, right? They did hop on a trend, right? And that's the thing. Like whenever you hear Fortnite now, you think of the battle royale. You don't think of the PvE game.
No.
Right. And
most people coming to Fortnite did not even realize that there was a PvE.
Exactly. Which if if I was on the team at Epic, I would be vastly restructuring the PvE game. I would just be restructuring it entirely because it's not even like it's so dated. It's so dated. If I tried to play it the other day, it's not that good.
So
and like shit that you do in the battle royale like doesn't translate over the PvE. Shit that you do in the PvE doesn't translate over to the battle royale. So it's like it's two entirely separate games now, and one's much better, highly polished, and it's the free one.
Yeah. And I would like to interject on that with the fact that most people would be like, well, if it's a free game, why do they need to have like skins, and why are they trying to get people to spend their money on this? Well, because of the success that this did, I would be willing to bet that majority of Epic, their design teams were not focused on the battle royale initially.
Yeah. Oh no, for sure.
So with something that gets that popular, if you're like, okay, we hit something here, maybe we should support this. Well, turning around and being like, by the way, we're now going to charge people for this. That would lose all of their, like, most of their support, like, that they have for that. Like, if they started charging monthly. Also, what game does that in that realm?
Yeah, none. Like that's one of those.
So
one of those things.
So they found a way to basically say, hey, we have a way to get income for this game to funnel money into this game to then develop it more.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, like, within recent years, I think Fortnite's one of the top, or Epic with Fortnite.
Mm-hmm.
Not talking about the Epic Store or any of that shit, because I know you have issues with that.
Fortnite the developer, not
yes.
Fortnite. Or Fortnite.
Okay.
Epic the developer, not Epic the platform.
Yes. They found they're doing a very good job pushing out like the new content for this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, here's the thing: like PUBG hopped on the train of the whole season things, but all that adds is cosmetics, whereas Fortnite actually restructured the map. Like, granted, they have one map, but they've been very flexible with what they've been doing. They've added the events that have made like national news
every time that it's happened too. Like that's the funny part. Like this isn't the first time that like
No,
I remember the cube,
black hole,
the
cube,
the cube, the black hole that just happened, where completely
the
redesigned the game.
the rocket.
Yep.
I mean,
It's
so
like-
that's the thing.
silo.
They have been very consistent with, hey, there are a lot of people playing this. They're supporting us by buying these skins, which in turn allow us to do more stuff. So we're gonna keep supporting this, right? So, that's one of the games that works out. Warframe. Now, granted, Fortnite's not been around as long as Warframe has.
Yeah.
But Warframe tries to do a good job of keeping up with content now. Some of the stuff that they've slowed down with Quest. And I'm very, you know what? Next week, Gage's rant. Where the fuck is Railjack?
Well, okay, I want to rant about that too. Let's get in. Let's touch on DE for a little bit. We'll let everything else go for a minute. Let's just talk about DE, okay? Where the fuck is Railjack? We're in another content drought. It doesn't look like it's ending anytime soon, even though apparently a bunch of the stuff that they're working on right now is coming out sooner rather than later. But
well, what does that mean?
Give me a fucking date if that's the case. You already teased it.
Where's Railjack? I literally, okay, we went to TennoCon for the first time 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that they announced was Railjack. And at that point, I had been only playing the game a couple months. I saw that and I'm like,
hype.
I was like, this is fucking great. This is amazing.
Hyped. It looked practically finished, or at least in some form of, and you can do something.
And then throughout the rest of the year after TennoCon, I was like, where's Railjack?
Fucking crickets.
And you were just like, give it some time. Give it some time.
I expected it to be out by now.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah. And then you were like approaching this next TennoCon this year.
Yeah.
You're like, where the fuck is Railjack? I can't tell if my house is real quick. Side note, my lamp is flickering and I don't know if the bulb's dying or I'm live in a haunted apartment. Either way.
Or we're about to lose power.
Yes.
That would suck.
China is censoring this podcast.
They've tapped in. They know.
Yeah, no. So anyway, I thought that maybe they would have released it or announced like, hey,
it's not out yet. Okay,
we're gonna do it now.
It's not out yet. There is no quote unquote end game. They're still
don't have a sequel to
dedicated
Sacrifice.
To the casual player. They're still like that's their market, and I think they've accepted it, but they haven't come out and said it. They need.
We were supposed to go to a new fucking system.
Content in a live service.
And that's the thing.
And
you know what's not? Do you know what's not content? And as much as like
Prime,
I like D. Yeah, Prime.
Yeah, Prime is not content.
That's just
Tennogen, not content. Yeah, no, we agree. We agree.
We need.
And I am Digital Extreme's biggest advocate. Okay,
yes.
I am literally got it tattooed on me. But my point is, there needs to be content, and there needs to be hype for the game. You know when there was hype for the game? When we got Prime trailers that gave little lore bits. We don't get that anymore.
Do you know what? Okay, yeah, I mean, yeah.
Because it takes too long. And I'm like, okay, then show me that other shit that you're supposedly working on, because we're not seeing that either.
Okay. No, I will agree with that. I will say the last thing that they did do, though, because I guess they shifted their focus away from we want to finish Railjack to revamping the new player experience.
That's not out yet either. They just got a trailer. They didn't do the trailer. That's why the trailer exists. They didn't do it.
That trailer was good, though.
It was good. It's really good. I really want it to be a part of the game. Yeah. It's super hype. That's still my problem, though. There's no
They're teasing us.
Content. I need goddamn shit to do.
Rick needs his fix.
I need my fix. And it's like, okay, well, what do you get with content whenever it comes to Warframe? My favorite content, legitimate fucking story quests. That's what I fucking miss.
I mean, yeah,
I want lore entries. I want fucking build
like,
on the goddamn universe that you've created.
Sacrifice was really good. I'm still waiting for that next. Like, legitimately, as soon as Sacrifice came out.
Yep.
And they knew this, and we knew this.
Yep.
And they know that we know this. an entirely new like world just opened up for them as
Yep.
far as lore was
Yeah,
concerned.
it's like we had confirmation that, spoiler alert, we had confirmation that the Warframes are actually people. They're infested. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
played into all of that, right?
And they had been teasing that a little bit with each of the original lore entries for the frames and
Yep.
and you know, and they didn't outright say it, but it was speculated from that.
Yep. Space
But
Bomb's been gone for 3 years now.
she went out for milk.
Never came back. Never came back.
But
we're supposed to get that story quest before Christmas.
Which Christmas?
This one, apparently. But we're not going to have Railjack before that. We're going to have the dry dock so you can build your Railjack. But we're not going to have Railjack.
Well, okay. Legitimate question.
What?
Do you think we'll get Railjack before next TennoCon?
I do think we'll have Railjack before next TennoCon. We're also going to have that Mafia system, whatever the hell they're calling it, where it's basically the Shadows of Mordor.
Yeah.
You have a personal boss,
yeah,
kind of thing that you fight all the time.
And they showed that. I thought that was interesting.
They showed
but
that.
The thing is, they need to push that out.
Yeah.
Like,
and here's the thing. They can release as many fucking Warframes as they want. If there's no lore tied to the Warframe, not content.
It doesn't mean
it's not
anything.
content.
Like that's the thing. Like you look at it and you're like, okay, what has come out this year? So they added some lore in with the Nightwave quests. But not too terribly much. Like it wasn't
it's
a
world
quest.
building lore, but it's not. It doesn't affect you and
As a
what
player,
you're going to be doing as like the player character.
Right. So they added that. They've added how many more Warframes now? Like 6,
something like that. They average like 80 a year now, apparently. And
But-
and here's the thing. This is off of like a late dev stream, like a while ago. They projected they have 100 Warframes like lined up at the time, right? Whenever the hell that was. We're now around like 40, 48, something like that.
Yeah.
Ballparking. Not including the Prime variants, because I don't include the Prime variants, right? It's just a variant on a Warframe that already exists.
But that's the thing. We're starting to approach territory where the new frames coming out are variants of a Warframe that already exist.
To some degree.
What is it? Gauss?
It's a different flavor.
Like
Gauss actually plays vastly different than Volt.
Okay.
It's just one's a speedy boy, one's a really speedy boy, but he has his own mechanics that make him vastly different than Volt. He didn't.
Well,
he's not better than Volt. Volt's not better than
different.
him. He's just different.
So if they keep
like,
with that, then
like
that's fine.
Hildren is a tank that focuses on shields. Rhino is a tank that focuses on armor.
And
They're two different sets. They have completely different abilities.
What's his face is a tank that focuses on health.
Yeah, we're getting Kirby frame. I think this week. Grendel.
So it's just I would like to see content because at this point in time, I have to ask myself, you already have teams that support the game itself. Those are going to be different than your main developing team, right?
Yeah.
So these hot fixes, these things that are coming out, because I've seen this pretty much across the board with any sort of multiplayer game.
Mm-hmm.
You have teams specifically in place that will go into to try to fix these bugs. If the bugs are big enough, you'll rope back in the original coders, but they're kind of interdispersed. But some of these updates don't necessarily require the use of your graphics team or your story team. So what are all of these people doing right now?
Exactly. And that's my issue. It's like you have a bunch of employees. What the fuck are they doing? Where's the content? And that's my issue. And if it's the type of deal where it's like, if the workload is actually the problem, hire more people.
Or understand that maybe you don't need to take on as much as you can. Because as a player, I'd be fine with 2 big updates a year versus you trying to push out 5 or 6 and us not get anything because you're so overworked.
Yeah. And that's the one thing that Warframe has struggled with. It's like, we'll get an update. It'll give you about a week's worth of content. Maybe, if you're lucky. If it's a story quest, it's a couple hours. Okay, sure. But like, and I'm fine with that. But like, if that's all we're getting, we need more of it.
But at this point, you know, they're approaching the territory where I would say they're a successful gaming company. They make the money. Like,
Yeah.
hire a specific team to develop quests. Like, don't
Yeah.
like try to branch this a little bit off of your main team, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because like the story modes are great. I can tell you that, you know, and people are like, well, it takes time to develop stories like that. But with Sacrifice, they actually did that very quickly, and that didn't feel any less of
it
the
felt
quality
like
than
it was very high quality.
than the Second Dream or
Mhm.
what was the other big one?
War Within.
War Within, right? Um, push that out on a fairly constant basis because at this point in time, now I might be entirely mistaken because I don't know the financial situation of the company. I don't know what the company's direction is. I don't know any of this, but I
Well,
can say
nobody really
that
does.
right
Yeah,
that it
except for the company.
should not be one of these things where we get kind of like one of these main story quests a year. If a year.
Yeah.
They could push these out like every few months.
Yeah.
And they showed that they were able to do that with Sacrifice.
Yep.
And if it's an issue of people, we'll hire some more people.
Yeah. Like, again, I agree.
The game is and here's the thing.
There's
the game
no
is,
reason.
The game is constantly getting bigger too. Here's the thing. As the game gets bigger and you get more of an audience, you also increase your pool of people that you can hire. That, like, sure, I get it in the beginning. You're like, well, yeah, we could hire these programmers, but if they don't meet our the quality, then what?
Well, they need to get out of that mindset that like they might fail at any time, and I think they're not over that yet. Like whenever the game went into early access, like almost 6 years ago now, it's like, or was it 6 years ago? Almost 7 years ago now. We just celebrated right?
I don't know.
Whatever the fuck it was. The company was failing. They were laying people off left and right? They went back to a bare bones skeleton, like, and Warframe itself was a Hail Mary throw, right? As a free to play game that was hopefully.
And it worked out.
And it worked out, right? Here's the thing. It worked out. Okay. Now build on it.
Yeah, because you don't
now build on it.
Here's the thing, you don't need to be focusing so much on the fact that it filled out with, what was it, Dark Sector?
Dark Sector was it was what the hell was it? They didn't want to do Dark Sector. They wanted to do Warframe, but they were like, "No, we're not doing like the publishers that they were going to were like, we're not doing Warframe. Do something else." But that's how Dark Sector came to be.
The point that I'm trying to make is what led them to get to the point where they needed to lay people off was not Warframe.
No.
And now they're succeeding, and
exactly
they have the ability to do that.
Exactly.
So they should just
there should be a small team making
quests.
There should be a small team making quests. There should be the team that designs the Warframes.
You know that's
they should be also designing how the Warframes fit into the lore. There should be story quests associated with the Warframes. I don't know why we're not doing that anymore. Like they'll add a boss and it'll drop Warframes that don't really relate to anything, at least not within the codex of whatever the fuck it is. That's the irritating part.
I mean, and the first big thing that we saw with that I really saw with that, and I think she came out before Revenant and Garuda, but like when Hildren came out, like
Hildren came out after both of them.
Well, I mean, okay,
but,
so yeah, like
that,
Garuda
that
didn't
was
really
a boss
have
fight.
That was a boss fight, but the thing leading up to that boss fight didn't really explain Garuda. It explained what that fucking orb was and everything else. It expanded on the guys out there.
Yeah, but it didn't actually involve
Hildren. Hildren was just kind of like,
she was just a boss drop, and then her codex entry, nothing.
Yeah,
fucking nothing. And like we used to have like really ominous codex entries, like the Rhino Prime one is infamous, right? because it's like that was like the first like the kids were connecting to the Warframes, and like okay, and like I hope that whenever they do the new player experience, I hope they build on the lore. I hope it's a little bit more consistent across the board. Because honestly, if they did a total fucking reboot of the star map and all that bullshit, and it was story driven, I'm okay with it. But
you know what I'm still disappointed with, because we haven't actually gotten anything on this in a few years.
What's that?
And granted, I started playing after it was released, but I can still acknowledge the fact that we've been kind of left hanging on this. After the Chains of Horror, everything on that end has just been
Man of the
left.
Wall and all that.
Man of the Wall, yep. More of space demons.
Yeah, it's like he shows up from time to time, helps us get somewhere to do something, but like doesn't
like once. I think he came up one other time to help you. Any other time that you see that is in your ship, you get scared. I enjoy it.
Like, what the fuck are you doing, dude? Go away.
You're fucking doing a one-handed fucking handstand, like upside down, like okay, guy.
See, every time I see him, he's being creepy.
Yeah.
He's hugging a wall, looking at me.
I legit, one of my favorite ones that I did, I went behind where right in front of the door where you can get to the operator. And he was just laid out like, paint me like one of your French girls.
I know we just talked about like scary shit on the last one, but like that's the type of shit that actually like startles me. Whenever it's there, I don't immediately see it, and then I do see it and realize it was there the whole time.
I'm just saying, like, think
it's
about
like down the hall.
Think about the first time you experienced that, because you're not expecting that after the quest.
Nope. Like he does in.
And here's the thing: after I did that quest, like because I had my operator right, I put him in dark clothes, so he blended in, so I didn't see it at first, and then I saw the text. I'm like, what? So I walked over to where like the radio terminal is, and I'm like, what if it's going from there? It just so happened that he was sitting up on the ledge right there, and I'm like, oh, hey there.
Hi, buddy.
Hi, buddy. Yeah, because we've talked about this in a previous venture that we had that will remain unnamed, about theories on who he is, what he will do. Like,
yep. And we haven't had any payoff on that.
No.
And that's that sucks.
It does.
Like it's
it's disheartening.
Yeah. And going back to the Blizzard thing, because a lot of things happened around the Hong Kong thing and with Blizzard that are just a little too coincidental.
Oh,
they probably are coincidental.
This, I will say before you even get into this, so the audience can hear, I am saying 100% this is coincidental.
I'm saying that it's coincidental too. It's throwing off my radars, right? I'm just like,
because I see no way that this could actually pan out to how it would be done. Anyway, proceed.
Well, no, sir. like feasibly, like there's no way in hell like they could have done what they showed off in the amount of time that they would have had to make it conspiratory, right?
Yes.
Right? Okay. So, Riot, with their 10-year anniversary, right? League of Legends, they announced a first-person shooter. They announced a Diablo-like
adventure
game. They announced a card game. League of Legends is coming to mobile and consoles as it's like its own thing. Their Teamfight Tactics that people wanted on a mobile, they're bringing that to mobile because it turns out people do have phones. But again, that was at the request of the consumers. What else? Did I say the card game? Yeah, the card game. And
what, you said this is supposed to be released within the next like year or two?
Yeah. Or at least like half of it. What is coming? Oh, that's the other thing. Animated series that's going to build the lore of Runeterra, which is the world that League of Legends takes place in.
That's one of the things that I Blizzard just shot themselves in the foot when they stopped doing the cinematics for Overwatch.
I've said that. I've said that for years. I'm like, where the fuck? Every champion should have a goddamn cinematic. That's like, it doesn't make sense to me. I'm like, why the fuck would you kneecap your marketing like that? Doesn't make sense. It's like, you can build on the lore, you can keep people playing the game because they want to play as these characters.
And you legitimately could have profited on making a movie.
Exactly. And they
so
didn't
when
do it.
when Overwatch was first announced with that cinematic trailer that they did,
mm-hmm.
like that was just setting up for so much. And then
like, because it looked like a goddamn Pixar movie. It looked like we're gonna play a Pixar movie. That's what it fucking looked like.
It felt like what Kingdom Hearts should have been.
Just had to interject that, didn't you?
It still hurts, man.
I know it hurts. I'm sorry. They didn't care.
And then I saw on
care.
Facebook today that they're asking people to vote for them to win the one of the gaming awards.
Oh, for Kingdom Hearts 3?
Yeah.
That's not going to happen.
I was like,
I'm
no.
sorry.
No.
Like, okay, but Riot is now, they've put themselves in the ring, whether like that was intentional or not. They put themselves in the ring against Blizzard.
But here's the thing. Whether or not I think it was intentional with them developing this stuff, they were not first off, there was no way that they could develop all of this stuff immediately upon seeing what Blizzard did to combat that, right?
They've been working on this for years.
Here's the thing, that seems pretty unfeasible. What seems more feasible is the fact that they probably had planned to kind of wait until closer to them being able to launch it.
Yeah.
To say anything about it.
Oh, that's exactly what they did.
But then they saw an opening with the outcry against Blizzard and all of their products and took advantage of that.
Yeah. I would agree. That's probably what they did.
Yes.
And again, I'm okay with it because I'm like, name another company that makes as much money as Blizzard that could actually, be a competitor.
I mean, that's
right?
Here's the thing about Blizzard. The only reason that Blizzard is still, I mean, okay, it's hard to say because now that it's Blizzard Activision, they're going to be getting money from the Call of Duty series. I actually just today saw a trailer for Modern Warfare, and I'm like, okay, so you're revisiting this. Whatever, right? So, but just based on Blizzard games alone, right? The only real thing that's like that they've been making a lot of their money off of, I would say, was WoW. Like
that was definitely their most stable income.
Because with Hearthstone, you have a lot of people playing that. You
actually
have the ability to buy stuff in it, but maybe not. You could argue that people buying the loot boxes in Overwatch was a good income, but at the end of the day, when you had a few million people constantly paying $14.99 or however much it is a month on top of buying the additional services, on top of buying the games, and that's where they're making their money from. But if you were to put them, because here's the thing, Riot knows better than to try to develop a MMO that would combat WoW. Because honestly, WoW was one of those things where it obviously it was not a first of its kind thing, because at that point you had things like EverQuest out. You had other games that were in that realm.
Yeah.
But they came in, they struck it hard. They had a good story to base it off of with Warcraft.
WoW was cool.
So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So no, I don't think we're ever going to see something that is going to overtake WoW by rising up to the numbers. What we're going to see is games overtaking WoW because of the decrease in WoW's numbers, and the decrease is going to come from Blizzard itself.
Yeah, just them not being able to maintain a player base.
But with the other like facets, so your other games, here's the thing: League of Legends kicks the shit out of
Here's the Storm.
Heroes of the Storm with players. That's not going to be hard.
Heroes of the Storm was trying to take people away from League of Legends whenever it came out.
So
and people went to that game. They weren't happy with it because it was too casual. And then they stayed with
the card game will probably be very competitive. What we're also, I don't know if you're tracking this, but over the past year or two, maybe been longer, but I heard about it within the last year. Magic the Gathering has actually been working on developing their own online
that's right.
like arena card game.
Yep.
Hearthstone was the first one to really kind of do that in a digital sense.
Oh, they weren't. I wouldn't say they were the first one because there was that. There are a bunch of like Japanese card games. I know. The developers are Side Games. I can't remember what the hell the game's actually called, but it was a digital card game that was there before Hearthstone was, and it's been fairly popular. But I know the players that were playing that have mostly gone to other games because of the balance within that game kind of got out of hand with expansions and whatnot.
Yeah, regardless,
if you were to come out with a new card game,
I'm saying like that's the thing. There is actively, because Magic's still trying to gather their stuff up, and the thing with Magic is they basically don't need to sit here and be like, we're better than Hearthstone, right? They don't need to market themselves as different. They have their player base. They are literally making this probably based off of a thing of people being like, well, it's great that, like I have the cards, I like playing it, but it would be great to be able to play this same game online.
Yeah.
Which is something they needed to do for a while.
Yeah.
Riot, on the other hand, damn well that they're going to be like, we have a better game than Hearthstone.
They are there, and again, that was one of
the
things that they already talked about. They're like, we're trying to make this as free to play friendly as possible, which Hearthstone not free to play friendly.
So that's the thing. I mean, as far as a competitive shooter, like Riot's not doing that, is it?
Yeah, it's going to be a competitive shooter.
Okay, so Riot is going to try a competitive shooter. The market for that kind of area was kind of, I don't want to say dead, but like, here's the thing. Team Fortress 2 was out. There wasn't talks of a Team Fortress 3. There still isn't talks of a Team Fortress 3. So what was there to try to combat a giant like Blizzard who, up until this point, was doing fairly well with their games? People liked Diablo. People liked WoW. I mean, granted, this was around the time of Warlords. But they dropped this game. It seems promising because this is early. I think this was probably very early stages of the talks between Blizzard and Activision joining.
Mm-hmm.
Because I believe Overwatch came out before.
It was in development before. It was like 2016, I think.
So again, no real like known competition by any reputable source. For this game.
In reference to
Overwatch, yeah. So now you have this Diablo. I mean, Diablo is one of those games where it's like, what necessarily are they trying to compete against? I mean,
well, okay, so the biggest competitor with Diablo right now is Path of Exile.
Sure.
Right? That's a very successful game with a developer that seems to know what the fuck they're doing.
But I mean, at the time with the development of Diablo and when it came out,
like,
they were just at that point. I don't think it was in Blizzard's mindset, other than outside of we want to make money off this. We want it to be a good thing. I think you had this drive behind the developers of we like what we did with Diablo. We want to continue with this, right?
Yeah.
But this is before, discussing Immortals, right? So we're now seeing someone that can rival Blizzard in terms of numbers, because like literally Riot has one game
and funds.
Riot has one game.
Yep. And that's the biggest like devil's advocate, right? It's like, well, they've only had one game. They've only ever developed one game. We don't know if any of these other games that they're developing are going to succeed, right?
We won't know until they try. I'm
willing to let them try, and I'm willing to try their games.
And here's the thing, though. that people need to not be so concerned about with that. Like, okay, you're concerned whether or not they can develop this game because they're stepping outside of their essentially their lane. They've been able to keep League active and good for how many years?
League just broke the record with most congruent players in one game.
Right.
Like, and it's so fucking high. It's like 8.6 million.
So that I mean
like,
that's legitimately what I'm saying is like they have shown that they can they can manage this. They have shown that this isn't a company that's popping up just to try to take down another company. Looking at what happened with Rift, like
or
what was the other game that came out that was supposed to be a
Star something?
Yeah. I can't think of it. It was so bad.
That's the thing. Like the actual the gameplay of it wasn't terrible. It's
I tried
just that
playing it for a
everything
bit.
fucking looked atrocious.
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell they were going with that art style. It didn't appeal to anyone. Things were just like hideous.
Right.
Right.
So you have a company that yes, it's kind of stepping into Blizzard's realm of having multiple versions of games, but it's not a company that is. Here's the thing: whether or not they beat out Blizzard, I feel like Riot would like to beat out Blizzard, but at the end of the day, it's like we just want to make new games. We think we can do a good job with this, so we're going to put this out.
And that seems to be their mentality.
And if you have that mentality, you're more likely to succeed than being like, I'm going to be the David to take down Blizzard's Goliath, right?
Yeah, like that's the thing. It's like they've been working on these games for years. Apparently, again, we're going to get a bunch of shit. Like they have a full 24 episode anime coming out next year. That's
really
that's what I'm saying. Like they're building on the lore, which that's been the biggest gripe with League of Legends for the longest time. Like the lore was inconsistent. They'd bring out new champions that had enough, like they would fuck up everything. They kept redesigning the lore again and again and again. Like, and I know most people didn't give a shit about that because they just wanted to play the game, right?
Right.
Like whatever. Totally understandable.
And I think probably Riot understood that too. Like,
and they did. Like, they totally did.
They probably were like, well, the lore can kind of suffer a bit when most people are focused on like. I can say I've played a little bit of League.
Yeah.
And I can honestly say that's not a game that I would like. You're gonna have your people that are invested into the lore of it, but the lore isn't a driving factor to how the game itself plays.
Oh no, exactly. But the more invested you can get into the product, the better it is, right? And from face value with what they have within the lore of League of Legends, Runeterra, there's a bunch they can fucking work with, right? And they can go anywhere with it. So it'd be interesting if they actually build that out. So it's nice to me.
It'd be hilarious
hearing that they're going to build it. What's up?
If Riot managed to hire on some of the people that used to work with Blizzard's lore. Because here's the thing, and here's one of the biggest disappointments, like from Blizzard, in my eyes, is the quality. It's the lore is just going downhill at this point. And granted, we've talked about this before, where it's like, well, you only have so much you can do having a online game centered around an RTS that you made 20 something years ago.
Yeah.
Like, and expanding on that. But my argument to that is look at Final Fantasy 14, look at Final Fantasy 11. You have a company that, I mean, Final Fantasy is all centered. I mean, the games themselves are story driven. So it's much easier for them to support that in an online kind of way, like for their online games.
Yeah.
That I don't see them slowing down because they don't have. Here's the thing with 14,
they don't need to.
They don't have a reference point that they need to keep going back to. You know what that was? And honestly, like just giving Square some praise here and Final 14 as a whole. They screwed up in the beginning. They acknowledged that. They did something with that at the end of it to be able to reference that. And that's their only reference point
Yep.
that they need to drive off of was there was a disaster in the beginning.
Everything got reset.
Everything we essentially got saved, and we're now going forward with this. But here's the thing, like, Blizzard is like, if you look at this, Blizzard's gonna have to get to a point where it's like, we had to bring back Illidan, we had to open up an already closed story to continue on one of these stories. Actually, two of that, because like you stop at the end of Warlords, tease Illidan at the end of it, and then have him a main focus on fucking Legion, which is, first off, WoD and Legion are just Burning Crusade 2.0.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
So now you have how that story progressed. You're going to take the end result of that story, tweak it a little bit, adjust it to your surroundings. The same thing's legit. The same thing is going to happen with Bolvar, with the Lich King.
Yep.
And it's not going to be in a good way. You could have done so much with the new Lich King with Bolvar.
Yep.
But Blizzard's not at the point where they're going to be in the market of probably creating a new story for that.
Yeah.
Instead, they're probably gonna, like, and you kind of saw this in Legion in the because I played a Death Knight. I enjoyed Death Knight. The class story for Death Knight was very good in that, and you start to see the interaction between the Knights of the Ebon Blade and the Lich King, essentially Bolvar, right?
Yeah.
He's kind of losing his shit. And again, like, that's not something that would have been unexpected. But Blizzard's just gonna fall back on, hey, this is how Arthas' story panned out.
Yep. Let's do the same thing.
We can do the same thing again.
Yep. Wrath of the Fire King.
Wrath of the Fire King.
I called that years ago.
We talked about this in Legion.
We're gonna have a CGI trailer of the Ice Crown Citadel throne melting.
Yeah.
It's not gonna crack like it did with
Arthas.
With Arthas, it's just gonna melt.
So, but like, Final Fantasy is doing good with that. Final Fantasy has this point in with their thing where they don't have kind of a self-imposed ceiling on where they can go with their lore.
No.
And
they do collabs. Lore-wise collabs.
Yeah.
That just work.
Yeah.
Because their lore is so broad, and they're just willing to
accept other people.
Accept it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where I think Riot can go with their stuff, because it's like, people can complain that they haven't put too much in the lore and they've kind of had to revamp the lore or whatever. If they would just come out with this new stuff and just wipe the slate clean and say, this is the direction that we're going with the lore, they're not going to have that self-imposed ceiling that
Nope.
WoW essentially did.
Yeah.
That, I mean, again, it makes sense. WoW's logic on creating, or not WoW, but Blizzard's logic on creating lore works well with something like Diablo, where that's a linear story. You're going to build upon that story as time goes on. But with WoW, you can only do that so much before you're going to have to loop back around or create something entirely new, which, here's the thing, they tried that with Mists. People were like, fuck pandas, because people are stupid. Like, essentially, that was the biggest complaint that I've heard with you know, you can have your people that are like, well, I didn't like how this class played, or I didn't like how PvP was, whatever, right?
Yeah.
That's gameplay. That doesn't have anything to do with
like,
lore.
I just don't like pandas.
Yeah, I don't like pandas. So then, what are they going to do? They're going to double back over to be like, well, they liked Burning Crusade, so what if we do Burning Crusade
2.0 across 2 expansions? Yeah. Bullshit.
So, I mean, I don't know. Like, we'll see how Riot does. I think as long as Riot does not go in this with a mentality, a sole purpose of defeating Blizzard, then because here's the thing, some of the best games that, like,
oh god,
that you know, and I'd argue initially that, like, if you look at it, right, Call of Duty was popular, this is early on. I mean, Call of Duty is still popular now, but like before it became this pissing match with Battlefield. When Battlefield first started, Battlefield was like, we're just gonna do our own thing. Like we're making these games based off of how we want this to do. It was never really marketed towards we're better than Call of Duty.
Yeah, it was a totally different game in that sense because it was just like it was bigger player teams, bigger maps, destructible environment, like vehicles.
And that's the thing. It was doing fine with that, but when you get in this mindset of we need to prove that we're better than someone else, you're kind of restricting your path.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, again, like Riot doesn't seem to be in that. Again, they've been developing these games for years, apparently, with no leaks, which is surprising. Although I do remember something being leaked a couple years ago that Riot was working on new games besides League of Legends, right?
Yeah.
And I remember at the time people were upset about it because they were like, "Oh, this is going to take focus away from League." It never did. So, or at least it doesn't seem to have.
Well, I guess that's constantly a fear with companies that start to produce multiple type of games that aren't. I remember, God, this was probably like 2010, 2009. At this point, Jagex, the developer for RuneScape, was working on another kind of bigger game, and it seemed like it was going to be I don't know if it was going to be Java based. The project ended up getting canceled. I vaguely remember it being called Titan, but it seemed like it was going to be a legitimate MMO, not like what RuneScape was.
Okay.
And then they also did they did come out with another game. I think it was more in line with RTS than anything else. But people were like, well, if they do this, then you're going to pull players away from RuneScape, and that's not going to be good. But here's the thing. As a player, this is what I myself, and it sounds like what you might support as well, is if I like a developer, and I like a game that they produced, and they want to go produce a couple other games that are different than what they are currently working on.
Yeah.
I'm all for that because that means like, hey.
I was like that with Blizzard.
It's like I wasn't really into competitive shooters. I like Blizzard. I tried out Overwatch. I like that. So.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like it's.
So yeah, I mean, you could have people say that it takes away from your player base, but at the same point, like, who cares?
Yeah, like that's the thing. It's like whatever game you're currently playing takes away time from all those other games that you're not playing.
Yeah.
Right.
Excuse me.
Time is is the essence of
I have this on
hobby.
I have this on recording now that you have acknowledged the fact that with what you just said, I've been trying to get you to play Final Fantasy because you've been like, "Oh, it's such a good game. I'm really into it."
I am playing Final Fantasy.
You want to play it
for me?
You want to play it? Well, no, I'm playing Crush Crash.
I play that in the background. That's going
or
well.
I'm gonna play
Fortnite.
Or I'm gonna play like.
I also want to play Warframe too, but I get on that game
and
I do
you just get
missions,
sad.
I just get sad and I get off. But that's like
at least Atlas Prime has a neck.
He does have a neck. He's a beefy boy. Atlas Prime looks really good.
He's necky boy.
Necky boy. And they made a fist weapon viable for once. But
get fisted.
What? No.
I will trademark that. If
Get fisted. I'm pretty sure get fisted is probably already trademarked by some BDSM club. Or Doomfist. Remember the failure of Doomfist? Oh, they really fucked themselves.
You know what the
Activision Blizzard sucks. That's all I'm saying.
Do you know what the first failure of Doomfist was?
What?
The fact that they didn't get Terry Crews to voice him.
Yeah, what the fuck was that? Oh, it doesn't really go with what we're going for. I don't fucking care.
Have you looked at Terry Crews?
I don't fucking care.
He is Doomfist.
Yeah.
It's like He's legitimately one of the only
idiots.
people that
It's
could punch the fucking world and it would end.
We had this character, and his voice really doesn't fit that character. Okay, then change the character so it fits.
Because the
do you
lore's
want
so
positive
not
Yeah, I was gonna
solid.
say because the lore is so excellent in Overwatch. We would know if you released more fucking cinematics, but we don't.
But here's the thing. Also, at this point, what you just proved to us was that Doomfist is only a title. It's not a person. So who fucking cares about the person that you had designed? I'll throw him in the background as the last Doomfist.
Exactly. Oh, well, this guy's like a bad guy, and Terry Crews is all like blah 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 blah, and I'm like, or he's too charismatic, and I'm like, look at the fucking Joker. The Joker's charismatic. He's a bad guy. Look, look at Hitler. Look at Hitler. That's how we're ending this. Look at Hitler. Shut this shit down. I'm going home.